Welcome back to the True Body Intelligence Podcast. My name's Christopher Lee Maher, and I'm your host. And today, we're going to get into subject matter around the concept of what's inside gets projected outside into your real life, right? And how true body intelligence can be an asset into understanding how to navigate that successfully, so you can produce more of what you want as an experience in your outer life by shifting and changing what's going on in your inner world.
Christopher, we're back.
We're back.
I'm excited about this topic. It's something that I'm very excited to learn more about, and I know you have quite a bit to say. So let's kick it off by you outlining the general wisdom around the subject of the external world is basically a reflection of the internal world.
Yeah.
And to what degree is that true? Is it a little bit true? Is it completely true? Is it somewhere in the middle?
Well, for the observer, it depends on your own level of internal awareness, right? And once you realize, what I'll say is this, once you realize that the inner work that you're doing is changing your external reality, it motivates you more, or I can say it motivated me more to invest more time, energy, and effort and my resources into rewiring and reformatting my internal hard drive. So the way that I say it in terms of my book, Free for Life, and I say it again and again and again and again in a very succinct statement. Whatever is going on in your body is going on in your life. And so if you're unhappy with some aspect of your external world, it's so much faster to put your focus on the inner world, because that's something you have a bit more control over. Okay, if I attempt to control all of the people outside of me, all of the rules, all of the regulations, all of the policies, I get to a place where it's more than I can handle. And then now that becomes another stressor. And so the true body intelligence path is to reduce your incessant, abnormal connection to control. Because once you reduce that, you then get to see that, oh, I'm actually connected to everything. And what do I mean by that? Whatever's going on in my life is affecting everyone who's in my sphere of influence. So if I'm having a bad day and I'm outwardly honest about my bad day, it's going to have an impact on the people around me. If I'm having a bad day and I'm constricted inside, I think that the mood that I'm feeling is only happening to me. And then all of my kids come home and they're like, oh, Dad's in another bad mood, right? And now that starts affecting them. So then they start separating from me. They start shutting down. I start feeling like, this is weird. How come we're not having this connection? It's because I'm being dishonest, right? And so honesty impacts all of the conversations that we had earlier, right? So once I'm aware of what's going on inside of my body, I have the ability to automatically shift what's happening outside of my life. So if I realize I'm having, my energy today is low, right? Well, then I can go, okay, which Bestercise, which is a form of exercise, which Bestercise can I do to lift my energy? Boom. I get down on the ground, I spend 2 or 3 minutes, I raise my energy, I go about my day, I've had an immediate base state change. So whatever was going on in my body was going on in my life. So when you have the tools to be able to change those circumstances, you're able to stay in a continuous state of joy or happiness or peace or bliss, because you can affect those micro moments with very deliberate choices. Yet if you're unaware that whatever's going on in your bodies is impacting your external world, you're never going to make any changes. And so your external world is never going to change. Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're going to be the same. And then eventually you're going to wake up one day, you're going to look back and you're going to go, what happened in my life?
So basically to an ultimate degree. So
to an ultimate degree, right?
And so basically the inertia, whatever it is in the external space that is happening, it's almost like internal world with its own inertia, with its own momentum that is kind of spinning. But ultimately you can always steer it in a different direction just by focusing on the inside without trying to aim anything on the outside.
The moment you become aware, or someone else becomes aware, maybe you come home and your girlfriend's like, babe, like what's going on? Like the last 3 days you've been short, you've been curt, you've been distant. And you're like, I have? Well, for the person who is at least inwardly honest and self-aware, they at least know that they have, right? And then you go, you're right, I have been. I'm sorry, I should have communicated. And she'd be like, yeah, it'd be so much easier to talk these things out. And you're like, well, you know, I came from a family, there was no talking about our feelings or our emotions, right? And so then you're stuck in that state for 72 hours. And then everybody who's in your sphere of influence is affected by it. Well, what about the guy that's stress ignorant, right? Or the gal that's stress ignorant? They have no idea that they're moody or disconnected or fragmented or absent. And so they have no idea of the impact that they're creating. And then, you know, let's say they're a boss, they're a high-level manager in a really big company, and then they wonder why, like, no one showed up for their exit party, because they were throwing their emotions around constantly all the time without understanding the impact. And so when we're aware of this concept of my internal reality reflects in my external world, if there's something in our external world that we're in disagreement with, we have the power to be able to change that immediately if we have the right tools, right? And so the reason why true body intelligence is valuable to every one of the listeners is because we've created the tools that allow them to create an immediate base state change. And so if you're anxious, you can shift from anxiety into excitement. If you're angry, you can shift from either low-level frustration, agitation, irritation, or full-blown anger, maybe even rage, into loving kindness. And imagine if you could shift fear into confidence, or self-righteousness into righteous behavior relative to you, your family, your community, your culture. Imagine the power that gives you. Now you are becoming a co-creator in your own reality, and you get to step out of the position of the martyr.
So as the victim of the circumstances.
Yes, as the victim of the circumstance.
Is it just to linger on this point to clarify for people, do you mean literally? So like, I don't know, somebody has a problem with, the most obvious is like financial problems, or something, I don't know, something more banal, like, their faucet is leaking. Can you fix that just by going into the inner world? I know this is a caricature version of the problem, but I guess it kind of illustrates what is the mechanism there. Like,
sure. Yeah. Well, there's many mechanisms that you could choose, right? So you could go through shaking medicine, which I call shocking medicine. You could get your partner to lay down and do some moshing on your body, right? Which is where we remove a lot of physical tension. You could use eccentric strength to pull out a massive amount of concentric structural tension. You could do body of light. You could transmute the energy or the mindset that you're in to the opposite mindset. And you could use a few other tools that we've developed, right?
Oh, no, I meant like literally, like you have a leaking faucet in the kitchen. Like, can you fix it by focusing within? That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
like
well, remember what you're focusing on is the stress that's causing you.
Oh, I see.
Right. So the leaky faucet is irrelevant because if the faucet is leaking and I'm in a state of neutrality, the faucet bothers me very little. In fact, it might actually add value. I might like the sound of the drip, right? But if I'm in a high stress state, right, and every 2 seconds, don't. Now that's taking me away from the little bit of peace and calm that I have. And now it's causing agitation, irritation, frustration. Now, in a greater state of expression, sure, is it possible? Yeah. Have many humans achieved that state of potentiality and experience? Probably no. Yet, at least if there's the potential chance for you to use your mind or your emotions to shift some external aspect of your reality, that's a great place to be in, right? But I'm speaking more towards where true body intelligence is really valuable, and that's in reducing the stress that's at an unconscious or subconscious level in your body that's causing some external aspect of your world to be unattractive, to be upsetting, to be triggering, to be bothering.
The way it's framed in your mind, so basically it represents to you, I think the leaking, I never thought about that, but that's a brilliant example, because the faucet is just the faucet. What it causes you inside is everything.
That's right.
And that should be the signal that you're paying attention to.
That's giving you the reflection of where you're at. And so let's say your challenge externally is you are unhappy with your financial life, or you're unhappy with your dating life, or you're unhappy with your relationship with your mom, right? You're unhappy with your relationship with your sister. You're unhappy with your relationship with your children. You're unhappy with your relationship with food, right? All that's going on the inside. There's some disruption. The question is, what's the disruption, right? There's either an excessive amount of heat or there's an excessive amount of cold. And the excessive heat is revving you up, and excessive cold is stopping you from taking appropriate action, meaning heartfelt action to your own benefit. And so you might have the idea of the solution in your mind, but if your kidneys are too cold, right? And I know through this process, I keep bringing up different organs without people truly understanding what I'm talking about. Yet, once they understand the deep level of information, which they're welcome to investigate, right, through true body intelligence, they'll begin to understand that excessive heat and excessive cold creates an excessive state of function. And in that excessive state, I'm out of a state of neutrality. When I'm in neutrality, co-creation and manifestation is very simple. When I'm excessively cold or excessively hot, I'm operating in a state of vested interest. And in vested interest, I'm either a victim or I'm a perpetrator.
So you're trying to impose yourself on the world versus being in a relationship with the world from the state of neutrality. Would that
state of neutrality? In a state of neutrality, I am simply existing with what is, and I'm okay with what is.
But then causing change, you're saying that in that state, causing any change would be easier because you're not acting with too much force or too little force. So you know what the appropriate force for the situation is. Is that what?
Well, in neutrality, there is no force.
But let's say, then help me reframe the language. Okay. Let's say I'm completely good, like, complete in neutrality. And then the faucet doesn't bother me, but let's say there's somebody else in the house that it bothers them that lives with me.
Sure.
And I know it should be fixed. So then knowing what to do is very easy. And with the faucet, it is very easy because you just pick up the phone or get a wrench or whatever. But it sounds like you're saying that even in a much more complicated situation, if you in neutrality, you just kind of see the answer. You just know what is the appropriate thing that needs to be done to achieve this or that.
Yeah, because you're in a higher state of awareness, right? So when I'm in vested interest, what's being blocked is my inherent intelligence. So I'm too hot or I'm too cold, I'm too vested in the heat, right? So either the excessive cold or the excessive warmth. In that state, I'm in an emotional state that is vibrating either too fast or too slow. So seeing simple solutions to complex problems becomes much more difficult.
Because you're off balance. So there's a lot of energy exerted towards trying to even stay in a somewhat neutral state, emotionally and physically and all that.
Yeah.
I actually don't want to punch into your train of thought, but isn't the state of neutrality, by definition, there is no invested interest? Like you have no goal, really?
Yeah, meaning that you have no vested interest. So when I have a vested interest, what it means is I need things to look this way and sound this way and be this way in order for me to be okay.
But that's different than you said, find your motivation. Motivation is different?
Yeah, so in neutrality, I already am okay, right? So finding whatever my motivation is in order to take heartfelt action, great, find whatever your motivation is. Everyone, I'm saying is, the distinction is everyone has a different motivation.
But isn't motivation also a form of being not in neutrality?
No, because if the motivation is in alignment with your ethics, your morals, your values, and your principles, you're only upholding your own ethics.
So it's just some kind of an inner drive, like a deep drive?
A deep drive.
Like, is it where does that excitation coming from? Is it kind of like your, I don't know, your life's mission or something like that? Like, trying to understand, like, how do I identify the difference between what is my motivation versus kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, remember, vested interest is extreme. And what that means is that in order for me to be okay, which means being in neutrality, things need to look, sound, and be like this.
Control.
So if I'm already in a state of neutrality, things don't need to look, sound, or be like anything, because I'm very happy I'm very happy with where I already am. So a simple solution, meaning you say to me, hey man, that faucet is bugging me so much. Then I go, okay, that's not an issue for me. Would you like me to figure out how to solve the dripping faucet? And then you go, yeah, man, that'd be great. That would bring a lot more peace. Sure. I have no vested interest in anything being any different. So I can help you meet your need.
Where's your motivation here, though?
My motivation is from a position of neutrality. I don't have any motivation. The faucet for me could keep running. It has no impact on me.
Oh, so you are saying that there should be no motivation?
No, I'm not saying there shouldn't be any motivation.
When you're in neutrality, I mean.
I'm saying in neutrality, it's just neutrality. There's no stimulus.
Okay.
You're simply feel a feeling of like, oh, I think I should go left. I go left, right? There's an instinct is different than motivation, right? There's the only thing to be gained from you taking action from neutrality is it's what feels right and good to you.
So it's just a natural impulse, but that impulse is not, it doesn't have a punch. Well, you can even take it or leave it. Like it's
I can take it or leave it. Yeah, if you go,
no, like, oh, I got to do this.
Yeah, if I go to the airport and they say, oh, we canceled the flights all week. Your trip to Cancun, you're not allowed to go anymore. And I go, okay, where do I get to go now? I call the travel company. What else can you do for me? They said there's no way to go to Cancun. Oh, okay, well, we have these other options. We have these three. Oh, can we do this one instead? Sure, great, bye. I'm gone. I'm going to this other place, right? I'm going through the doors that are open. And rather than sit at the airport, bitch, moan, complain, and whine about the flights being canceled, I'm already off to organizing what's the next experience that wants to happen.
So the path of least resistance, literally. You don't try and punch through things that seem to be closed. You just change directions and kind of go like water.
We're gonna go with the doors that are open. And if another door is closed, then something else is going to open, because this is how reality works. There's always another option. Yet, am I going to allow it to change my base state is really what the conversation we're having is. When I'm invested interest, my base state changes. Now I'm either crying in the corner because they took my vacation away from me. How could they do this? Or I'm angry, I'm yelling at the woman at the airport who's trying to help me understand. I'm cursing, telling her, Jesus, this company, you never get anything right. This is absolute BS. I paid you 3 months in advance. This is where my wife really wanted to go. Now I look like a total asshole. You know what I mean? They go, so you can go down that road. But in neutrality, I simply see that this door is closed and another door is opening.
Or you can investigate, maybe there's another option, but you do it in a way that doesn't disturb the environment and other people.
I mean, I'm okay with disturbing environments if that's what feels correct for me. Okay? But when I'm in neutrality, there's less vested interest in something needing to be the way that I expect.
So it almost sounds like a paradox, but you're saying that the law of preservation doesn't actually go away. It actually gains something by you being more open to more possibilities. So it's easier for you to see that there's always other options. Because my next question was, some might push back and say, well, look, humanity has advanced tremendously because certain people wouldn't accept no for an answer. And the reason we have airplanes is because the Wright brothers didn't get no for an answer. They just tried and tried and tried, even though this door seemed to have been closed. But then you said something that makes me understand that what you mean is that if you stay in neutrality, then if you have this thing that you're very passionate about, you're not going to be complacent. You're just going to stay in a place where it's easier to see more paths towards that goal versus trying to just
so let's say
tap your head on the wall.
Yeah, let's say the Wright brothers in that instance. If they were invested interest and the plane didn't take off the first time, one of them might have got out some gasoline and torched the whole project and walked out and said, screw this. This is totally stupid. This is a waste of our time, right? But in neutrality, there's always more options available to you than invested interest. Invested interest, you're getting constricted. Okay, you're getting excessively tight, and now you have less options available to you. And the point is, it's less about the action, it's about the base state that you're feeling while you're taking heartfelt action. And that's where true body intelligence has value. Because now, rather than being incredibly upset at the airport, you're able to turn left. When they say turn left, hey, we're turning left. Okay, guess we're turning left. Had no idea where we were going here. And so in that openness, in that spaciousness, you're able to be continuously surprised by how magical this realm of existence is. Yet when you're vested interest, meaning you're vacillating between fight or flight, you only have a few options. And those options are very fixed. And if those options change without notice, you now are riding on an intense amount of anger, frustration, agitation, irritation, anxiety, fear, or self-righteousness. And all those states age you excessively.
Because of stress.
An intense amount of energy in your system. And when you're burning up that kind of energy, it affects every part of you. It affects your sleep. Okay, it affects your mood. It affects your motivation. Affects your self-esteem, affects all of your interpersonal relationships. And so true body intelligence is here to offer an opportunity to be in the world, because everything is always changing anyway. So if we can at least have that conversation that nothing will ever turn out the way that you planned, Well, if I know that going in, it's always going to be slightly different than I imagined. Well, then neutrality is like the perfect wave to ride versus the wave that lifts you up and drops you in the trough and breaks your surfboard in half, right? I want to ride on that fun, exciting, joy-filled, intense wave of creativity, because I know things are always changing anyway. So why be upset about anything? Why be bothered? I mean, sure, it might rain 5 days in a row here. Well, I can allow that to change my base state. I can use it as a reason to feel sorry for myself. I can even visit what it feels like to be sorry, just to have the experience like, well, what does it feel like to be a martyr? What's it feel like to feel sorry for yourself? Well, if I'm going there to gain some value of, well, what's that experience? Let me feel some deep state of loneliness or depression. It has value. Yet if I'm invested interest and everything needs to look this way, sound this way, and be this way, I have a limited amount of options in terms of what I can feel, how fast I can shift, on how impactful I can be, because there's doing, right? There's doing from neutral, and then there's being from neutral. And what I'm speaking to is the way that you're being open, being happy, being empowered, being free, being intimate, being honest, being passionate, being philosophical, being decisive, being sober, being communicative, right?
That's interesting. So these are states.
States of being.
So you can say that invested interest is more goal oriented and neutrality is more experience oriented.
Yeah.
Just whatever it is.
Whatever it is, right? And if I'm invested interest around a subject, my mind becomes more closed.
Becomes more close?
Becomes more closed.
Close.
See, when I'm in neutrality, my mind is more open. There's more spaciousness. There's more opportunity. And so your body, your muscles and your organs, they hold these different states of consciousness. When your body gets tight, you get access to less intelligence that's inherent in your body. When your body's running right, your mind is running right. When your body's running right, your emotions are running right. When your body's running right, your spirit's running right. What does that mean emotionally? It means I have less anxiety and more excitement. Okay? What kind of excitement? The excitement you get from a feeling of freedom. The excitement you get from the feeling of intimacy. The excitement you get from the feeling of hope. The excitement you get from the feeling of passion. When my body's running right, at a mental level, I get to do what? I get to be confident about my analysis, about my understanding, about my problem solving, about my ability to be decisive and make good decisions, about my ability to take risk and be a successful entrepreneur. I get confidence from that, right? When my body's running right spiritually, what do I have access to? I have access to high functioning ethics, morals, values, and principles. I'm able to honor what I consider to be right and good or correct, whatever that is for you as an individual, whatever that is for you as a culture, whatever that is for you as a family. Okay, and those are different for all individuals, all families, and all cultures. And so when I'm in neutrality, I get access to the higher levels of intelligence that exist in those parts of the body. When I am out of neutrality, I have more tension in that part of the body, which then gets experienced as pain in some joint or pain in some organ. Okay, for a lot of women, it's menstrual cramps, right? Sometimes it's colon cramps. Sometimes it's small intestine cramps, right? Sometimes it's pain underneath the armpit, right? Sometimes it's burning eyes. Sometimes it's a loss of hearing. Like sometimes it's a stuffed up nose. Okay, everybody's different. And so a state of neutrality means that my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies are aligned as one body, okay? And when they become unified as one, I have access to all forms of intelligence simultaneously. And it's easy to access simple solutions for very complex problems. But when I'm invested interest, I need complex solutions for very simple problems. The question is, do you want a simple life where you're able to move where the wind is moving? Or do you want to fight against the wind for the purpose of building up your ego and your strength and to be told that things need to be difficult? You're a man, and if things are difficult, you'll grow. You know, those are old paradigms, but those were paradigms that were developed by people who had very tense, stressed bodies. And now,
So that's the thing that makes the most sense to them, obviously.
yeah, it's congruent. It's consistent with what they had. I get why they would have that perspective. And yet we're moving into a position now, because of true body intelligence, that we actually get to create a paradigm shift. You mean I can grow through happiness? I can do that without pain? I can grow through comfort? I can grow through excitement instead of anxiety? I can grow through confidence instead of fear? I can grow through taking righteous action versus self-righteous perspective? Well, before you had to have the opposite, and it made sense because it was congruent with what was available during those times, because they had very little focus on the body. For them, well, the mind was everything. Okay? If you had a very sophisticated state of analysis, you could create things in the world. Okay? And you could have a body that was kind of like subpar, right? But now we get to have it all. We get to have emotions that flow freely. We get to have a mind that's quick and sharp, and yet understanding and spacious, considerate. We get to have instincts that are spot on, that we get to take action on. Like, I might have had an instinct in the 1800s to take an action, but society said, hey, are you the King of England? No. Then why are you taking this action? Okay? There's no ability to do those things. And so we're in this really rare time, and this is where I believe that true body intelligence can be an asset to everyone, to every individual, to every family, to every culture, to every nation, to this globe and more globes, to more planets, right? Where there exist different forms of life that we're unaware of at this moment in time, based on our perspective and our development as a culture.
This is a subject that I don't know to what degree you ever address in the true body intelligence teaching, but is it at all relevant, the truth about other life forms in the universe, or it's more of a kind of like mental entertainment game that people engage with?
I mean, for me, we could get into that, yet we have a limited amount of time.
But no, I'm asking a more concrete question. Because some spiritual teachers touch on these subjects as central points. So my question to you is, was someone in that field, right? Is this ever relevant to your personal growth, or it's fine, but it doesn't really help you advance? Your opinion on that?
I mean, it's a deep subject, and to be able to visit that with care and consideration, because everyone's at a different stage of development in terms of their spiritual awareness, in terms of their psychic awareness, in terms of their interplanetary awareness, in terms of their energetic awareness. And so that is a much deeper subject. And because we're talking about the body, when we think about true body intelligence, we have to understand that this intelligence came from somewhere, right? And we're surfing on on the intents, the positive intents of other beings that came before us. And so to honor where we're at as a culture, I think I'm going to prefer to stay where we're at in our conversation. The limitations of where we're at are based on where we're at. So we got to put more focus on how can we create truly intelligent bodies that are open to seeing more and feeling more beyond the veil of what our human eye is able to pick up.
So you're saying everything you need is right here.
Everything you need is right in your body. Right. So let's figure out how we can maximize that potential. And then the individual who wants to focus on that as their drive or their motivator, maybe their motivators, they're like, I want to have the experience of God. You know, some people, they want to experience enlightenment. Other people, you know, they want to, there's a concept out there called astral projection. Other people want to have a profound spiritual experience, to know, to have confidence that their life has value and they were created for a purpose. And, you know, when you're already there and you understand those things are irrelevant because you've already had them, right? And so what I feel is the most important thing at this time in creation and co-creation is that human beings begin to maximize the potential intelligence that's inside of their body, so they can naturally be more aligned to a greater truth that's beyond the capacity of where they're at now.
So focus on that relationship.
Focus on that relationship. Let's get you the proper education so that you can then take heartfelt action to your own benefit. And if you want to expand into those realms, those avenues, great. But without knowing what parts of the body hold what forms of intelligence, good luck, right? You're just going to be spinning in circles. And if we already know that everything that we need is in the body, then all you need to do is figure out how to get in there safely, open it up, and get access to the keys of intelligence that are already sitting there waiting for your arrival. That, to me, feels like a powerful use of energy and time.
For you, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, this relationship was pretty clear from very early on. First of all, is that true?
Very true.
So you had the intuition, you just knew since you were a little kid that there's this very strong connection, very strong relationship between what's going on inside of you and what's going on outside of you.
1000%.
Is this one of the first things that you address when people come to you?
I mean, the first thing I address really is their projections about their parents. Because the first form of information and data sets that was delivered to them were their parents' inner deficiencies, their parents' insecurities, their parents' limiting beliefs, and their parents' fears. Simultaneously, all their parents to places where they were confident and integrated and balanced as well, but also the other. And so when people are getting on a personal growth journey, or you might hear it termed as like a spiritual journey, or they want to heal some physical challenges that are going on inside of them, what I feel is most important is that they understand that whatever's going on inside of them was also going on inside their mom and their dad. And then I do a deep investigation, and certainly we find out. And I go, okay, well, call your mom. And they go, call my mom. And I go, yeah, well, if this happened to you at 7, let's see what happened to her at 7. And it's sure enough to go out in the hallway and to call their mom, and they're like, I don't know how you knew that, but my mom told me the same thing happened to her when she was 7. I'll go, well, call your mom back and ask her what happened to her mom, right? And I've done this tons and tons and tons of times, and it's always the same story, right? So what I mean by that is this: it goes deeper than what we first explained. And what I mean by that is whatever's going on in your body was going on in your parents' bodies. Why? because half the cells inside of you were your dad's and the other half were your mom's. And whatever experiences they had before you, they passed on to you, especially the ones that were unresolved at a deep emotional level. And now you, as the next expression, the next evolutionary step in the lineage, you have the opportunity to then transform, to change, transmute, transfigure those limiting beliefs, those insecurities, those fears, and those inner deficiencies into the exact opposite of what those things are. So whatever's going on in your life was going on in your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. And as far as you want to go back, you're going to see similar levels of expression at a physical level, at a mental level, at an emotional level, at a spiritual level. Whatever limitations that were passed off to them, they passed on to you. And so again, I keep bringing this back to true body intelligence, but what I really want people to understand is the value is now you no longer have to be your parent. You actually get to be yourself. And what we find out in the very beginning, within the first 2 hours, is that, oh, whatever positive projections and whatever negative projections you have about your parents, you have become those things. And you're so loyal to those things that even in the face of all proof that change is possible, you'd rather stay loyal to their limiting beliefs, their insecurities, their inner deficiencies, and their fears. And the question is why?
Because it feels familiar.
Yes, because it feels familiar, but there's a very specific reason why. Because from womb until 7, you're setting up your subconscious programs, right? Your emotional subconscious programs. And then from 7 to 13, you're setting up your unconscious programs. So now these programs, meaning these data sets, these experiences, this information that you were picking up at a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, at a conscious, unconscious, subconscious, superconscious, and preconscious level was being provided by your environment. And so children are sponges for everything, every sound, every picture, like everything that comes in, and they're recording and then they're cataloging. The problem is this: children at a deep subconscious and unconscious level have no idea what reality is, because they have yet to understand mental constructs. And so everything's going into their body and into their emotions. And then at 13, they start acting these things out. And then parents are like, Betty, I don't understand what happened. What's wrong? Well, I'm really upset at Jake. Well, what happened? I asked them to take out the trash. And he said, fuck you, Dad. I'm going to play football. And he's never talked to me like that before. Like, did you know what's going on with him? And what they fail to understand is that this child is doing their best to attempt to individuate outside of the insecurities, the limiting beliefs, the inner deficiencies, and the fears that you passed off to them. So they have to push up against you to find their own way. The challenge is they never really find their own way. They find a way that's 180 degrees away from the way that you were being. And yet that adopted personality that they created is from reaction rather than proaction. And the reason why true body intelligence is important in this time in humanity is that we get to shift from reaction into proaction, which means now I get to determine how I'm going to be. I get to determine how I'm going to respond. I get to determine what kind of impact I want to have. And now I shift out of being a reflection of the effect of my parenting to being a conscious choice of my parenting. And that's a very powerful position to be in. I mean, imagine if we had a planet where only 1,000 people were operating that way. Imagine how much hope and how much opportunity that would give other humans to realize, whoa, you mean what's going on in my life is what's going on in my parents' bodies, and I have the opportunity to change that, and it only requires a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, and some consistency for me to figure out who am I in relationship to money versus my parents' relationship with money, who am I in relationship to religion versus my parents' relationship with religion, who am I in relationship to education versus my parents' relationship to education. And then once you get to find your own unique orientation, you get to discover more of who it is you really are at a soul level. And so now your soul now gets to communicate clearly with your body, and your body gets to take heartfelt action to your soul's desires.
So true autonomy.
True autonomy. True body intelligence leads to true autonomy.
So I know that you spend quite a bit of time with people on the subject of the whole, their genetic tree and, you know, where they come from as far as like their ancestors and what it means about their behavior and their lives. Can we dive a little deeper into that component of it?
Yeah, I mean, we can go deeper. What I think is most important right now is to give everyone like a little bit of a pause so that they can process, because when I'm in a space and I'm learning a lot of new information, and for some of you this might be older, but some of you, I'm sure some of these concepts, the depth that we've gone into is a little greater and what we've tied them into in terms of the previous conversations that we've had. In order for you to process and connect that information, you're going to have a little time. And some of you are hermits, and all hermits need to process in their own timing, in their own space. So we're going to get deeper into the genetics and the epigenetics when we gather together next. Thank you for tuning in to today's content. This will be made available in its full form of everything we put together for you at truebodyintelligence.com. And at truebodyintelligence.com, you can tune into my book, Free for Life, a U.S. Navy SEAL's unique journey to inner freedom and outer peace. And there I will teach you at a much deeper level. And this will be really, really, really good reference tool for you. Plus, the audiobook has an opportunity to allow you to start the program already by purchasing the one with the energetic integrations, and that will help you get started. All of this content will also be available on all major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and YouTube.